She had once been the ruler of her domain, a fierce predator who commanded respect in the jungle. But now, she lay helpless, her body weak, her golden fur infested with parasites that drained the last of her strength. The pain was unbearable, and as she let out a low, sorrowful cry, she knew she was losing the fight. Her cubs had left earlier, chasing each other through the undergrowth, oblivious to their mother's suffering. But as the day wore on, something pulled them back. They returned to find her motionless, her eyes dull with pain. They nudged her gently, but she barely reacted. She was not the mother they had known, the powerful protector, the fearless hunter. She was weak, suffering and crying. The cubs didn't understand what was happening, but they knew one thing: she needed help. Without hesitation, they ran, through thick jungle, past towering trees and over fallen logs. They searched for something, someone, who could save her. Fate intervened. A team of wildlife rescuers was patrolling the area, looking for signs of distressed animals. The cubs burst into the clearing, their tiny bodies tense with urgency. They hesitated only for a second before turning back, beckoning the humans to follow. Something in their eyes, pure, desperate, was impossible to ignore. The rescuers followed, weaving through the dense foliage until they reached her. The sight was heartbreaking. The Jaguar, once a magnificent creature, was barely clinging to life. Her body was ravaged by parasites, her ribs visible through her thinning fur. She was starving, dehydrated, and in pain. The rescuers knew they had to act fast. One of them knelt beside her, placing a dish of water near her mouth. At first, she didn't move. Then, slowly, her tongue flicked out, tasting the cool liquid. A spark of life flickered in her eyes. There was still hope. They called for backup. A medical team arrived with supplies and a transport vehicle. But first, they had to remove the parasites that covered her body. One by one, they worked carefully, relieving her of the burden that had been draining her for so long. She flinched but didn't resist. It was as if she knew. These hands meant no harm. With every sip of water, every bite of food, her strength returned. She lifted her head, her eyes meeting those of her cubs. They pressed against her, purring softly. The bond that had nearly been broken was whole again. Finally, the rescuers stepped back. Their work was done. She was still weak, but she could stand. And with her cubs by her side, she took the first steps toward freedom, toward life. As they disappeared into the jungle, she turned back once, just for a moment. A silent thank you. Then she was gone. Nature can be unforgiving, but sometimes kindness finds a way through the darkness. She would never say thank you. She didn't have to. The jungle knew, and so did those who had saved her.